So my name is Maxime Durant. I am a historian. I've been working in Assassin's Creed for 4 years and a half now, so on Assassin's Creed Unity for the last 2 years. My job is actually to make sure the game is very historically accurate and fun also. So to find a good balance between the two of them. I'd say we have a lot of details that are. Overall, I think the reproduction of the city is very believable of French Revolution overall, but we don't take one specific day during the French Revolution and say this is the city we live in.
Yeah.
But overall, I think we did a pretty good idea, a pretty good job of reproducing the city. But we did take some liberty also to make sure the game was fun and interesting.
Yep.
I'll comment on that, and I can do it. That's not a problem. Just to let you know, like 4 years and a half ago, when I joined in the team, they already knew they were going to do the French Revolution. So this team has been working on this project for about 4 years now. So we really take a long time to create a project like this, to understand, to document it, and to understand fully the whole scope of the historical period we're going to do. Trying to understand how our technology is going to enable us to recreate it fully, or what the choices are going to be. So obviously we're very interested in knowing what people expect. Sometimes we like to go over the expectations, like on the sides. A game like this, obviously people have been wanting the French Revolution for a long time, alongside many other subjects. We're very happy now to present it, but that's it's hard for us to comment in the meantime. It takes a long time to iterate. How we decide on the subject, when we know we're going to have the French Revolutions, for instance, we document ourselves a lot. The team did a tour about 2 years ago of the city of Paris, a guided tour, so they filmed everything. They wanted to have like a very fresh idea of the city they were visiting from today's perspective. And then after that we go into a historical perspective. So archives, a lot of the archives in France are public, so the National Library of France has a lot of visual assets that you can use. Then we read a lot of books, we see a lot of movies, TV series. We try to make sure that we understand fully the idea of the French Revolution, the facts obviously, but also the philosophical perspective. So for instance, when we talk about historic matters, so events or characters, we try to understand also from today's perspective how people understand that. How, for instance, a character like Robespierre, who's a major character from the French Revolution, how is he interpreted? Like how historians think, what they think about him. So that's the kind of work that we do in the game. Obviously, we do a lot of the research for visual assets, for landmarks, and try to be historically accurate. But it's really about the philosophy also of the French Revolution. That's a lot of work for us. We also use external historians, for instance, to review the script. So there's this professor from the Sorbonne, a very famous university in France, that reviewed our script twice in 2 different states of the advancement of the project. So we wanted to have his perspective as a professor. I know as someone from as outside Ubisoft, someone that doesn't do video games. Yeah. For him to comment and understand and see if we did it right. So after his first wave of comments, we did do some changes to make sure that it would fit better with the time period. And then after the second lecture, he felt it was good and like it was respectful of the French Revolution. So what we want to bring to the players is the facts that they can play with. We don't want to force the interpretation of history for players. Challenge here was obviously to make the city believable, but it's not, as I said, it's not just the landmarks, it's not just the buildings, because a lot of the material is available. You go inside Notre Dame, you buy a book, you have all the information to recreate it. I mean, most of it, it's there. But when you want to understand what for instance is the crowd life doing in the city of Paris, what are they talking about? If you go inside Notre Dame during the French Revolution, what's happening actually? Is it just like you have this building, it's the sandbox, but what is inside? Then when you read the history books, when you dig, you understand and you see the fact that, for instance, the Notre Dame was a depot, for a weapon depot, a food market for a while during the French Revolution, because the church had been disrupted in France because of the changes in rights. I mean, nobles lost their rights, the church lost their rights, their owning. So Notre Dame, at some point, people thought they were going to bring it down because it was left alone. At the beginning, people were very happy during the French Revolution. They were celebrating the French Revolution inside Notre Dame, but after a while, it just became a mystical tool. It was there, left alone, and people just used it to put their stuff. No, it wasn't this great building we have today. It was just an old building representing the old regime. That's the idea of the French Revolution. They wanted to create something new, and they didn't know what they were creating, but they were trying. And that's why I believe it was so chaotic. That's the feeling you have in the game. That feeling, we have to understand it fully by really doing a lot of research to understand and bring that feeling back to the player. That cinematic feeling of when you walk into the city of Paris, what you see around you is believable. You really feel like you're in the 80th century. Not just by the events and buildings, but by the feeling you have around you. It's just again, it's amount of details to recreate this city. For instance, you look at on the walls that we have in the game, you'll see graffitis. Those graffitis are actually real graffitis from the time era, not visually, but the text that they had on them. It's because people were writing that down. I mean, youths didn't invent graffitis in the 20th century.
Yeah.
We know it existed even in antique Rome,
Yeah.
right? So that's the kind of detail that we bring. It's a lot of small details that we research into history books, into magazines, into history journals, by reviewing documentaries. That's so. Either me as the historian, or what I do is I find the information, I give it to the team. Sometimes an artist can come and ask, how can I bring chaos into an element? And then we can look at the history of the building, for instance, or the of the wards, and then we can say, oh, this happened there. For instance, that statue was brought down. So we can put a lot of crowd life in front of the statue, and they seem like they're gonna take down the statue and melt it down to make cannonballs, for instance. A lot of that happened in Paris. That's the kind of elements, as I mentioned, that's the crowd life, what they're doing. That really gives you the feeling of the 80th century Paris. And then you have the chaos, you have people fighting in the streets. So we created gameplay systems that are systemic, so you can actually see that and interact with that. So you can actually, if you want, you can stop fights between people in the French Revolution, or you can decide to let it go. It's up to the player to decide.
Okay.
For landmarks, for instance, we decide by artistic choice, by relevancy with events, and also by distribution into the map. So, for instance, a building like the Bastille, we didn't have there was no choice. We had to recreate it because you have the storming of the Bastille. That's one of the opening scenes of the game. It's in a place of the city. Also, it's a bit alone in that place of the city, so it's perfect for us. So we can use that part of the map. I mean, everywhere inside the city you have these landmarks. There's 35 of them that we decided to reproduce with a high fidelity, and then there's about 75 of them that have a lesser fidelity, but they are there, and you can compare with, for instance, bridges. They're not. We don't reproduce 100%, but we're very close because we prefer to bring our effort on big landmarks. Characters, there's so many of them. You can play in the single player mission, the co-op missions, and also in the side content. Actually, in the side content you see even more of them because we can fit characters like Lavoisier, like Sanson, Guillotin, characters that you can see and have fun missions to play with, very narrative missions to play with, but we don't have to fit them into the main path. We don't have to force these characters into the main path. So you can actually play Arnaud, play his quest into the main path, and when you want to have even more historical experience, you can go on the side and play side content, for instance.